So Venerable Tendron should be here shortly. Venerable Tendron is here.
Please turn to page 97 and 98 in the Gold Prayer Book. Saji perki shushing metok tamri rablinji ni degen padi Sangye Jingdu Mikte sho jetsun lama dampa kyenam kichur kukala kense chujinti chitar tsampe duje ziman lazab gercheki chapawab tu sir idam guru ratamadalakam niryatayami. I'll turn to page 34 in the Gold Prayer Book. And we'll recite Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra 3 times, and then the Medicine Buddha stanza and mantra, and then the 4 measurables. First, the Shakyamuni Buddha mantra. Te ata mune mune ma mune soha. Te ata mune mune ma mune soha. Te ata mune mune Mahamunaya Soha. Bhagawan, with equal compassion for all, whose name when merely heard dispels the suffering of the lower realms, dispelled of disease and the 3 poisons, I prostrate to Medicine Buddha, lapis light. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. Te ata om bekanze bekanze maha bekanze bekanze raja samugata soha. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends or hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends or hatred for enemies. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends or hatred for enemies. Now go to page 37, the bottom, and we'll start with the verse of praise and mantra for Chenrezig, and then the green Tara verse of praise and mantra. Not veiled by any fault, white in color, whose head a perfect Buddha crowns in light, gazing compassionately at all beings, to you, Chenrezig, all-seeing one, I prostrate. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Tare liberates from cyclic existence. Tutare liberates from the 8 fears. Ture liberates from all sickness. I prostrate to the liberator, Mother Tara. Om Tare Tu re Soha. 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 Now turn back to page 34 for the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. Sangye chedan soki chonam la janchu badu dani kyapsuchi dagi chunyengi personamgi dola penchir sangye tu pasho. Sangye chedan soki chonam la janchu badu dani kyapsuchi Dagi chunyengi personamgi dola penchir sangye tu pashok. Sangye chedan soki chonam la janchu badu dani kapsuchi. Dagi chunyengi personamgi dola penchir sangye tu pashok.
Thanks, Lamala. Well, here we are again. So, hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tendron. I generally am the teacher in Florida, at a center in Florida. But this is my kind of home base, so I've been spending the summer here, which is lovely. So it's been good to see old friends, old Dharma companions, so. So how are we doing this morning? Pretty good. Hey, that's cool. All right, I'm a wreck, but that's all right. So, okay. Well, we can't introduce each other, but I'm just so thrilled to see y'all, because, Lama and I sit on the front row. We can't see anybody. I can't turn around these days. So, and I always wonder who's here. So it's very nice to see y'all. But so if you don't know your neighbor, please introduce yourself. And if you do know your neighbor, say hi. There will be a test. Who's up there? Hi, Hemant. Hi, Patty. I can't read the names from here, so I'm just going to wave. So, good to see you. Hope everybody's doing well at home. Okay. Ding, 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 ding. Hi, Erica. Bing, ring a bell.
Imagine you hear a bell ringing. It's time to settle down, time to sit back down. We've all met each other.
Did everybody meet someone new? How cool is that? You know, what's wonderful about that is it doesn't take much for us to feel comfortable with others. You know, well, here we are, you come in here. I don't know if this is the first time you've come here. I remember the first time I came into the Kadampa Center. And, you know, I went, whoa, this is freaky. So it can be hard to come to some place for the first time, but it can also be hard to come for the second time, the third time, and for the 157th time. So, you know, so I applaud your bravery for showing up. So it is so nice to know that we have this quality of friendliness, you know. So, you know, it may not come naturally to us. Some of us may be shy. Some of us may be a bit reserved. But, you know, in general, if someone says, please introduce yourselves, you know, we do. We do our best, you know, which is kind of cool. This is a nice quality that shines in our humanity, you know. So it's one of those things that we can trust, is that most people in the world start from this kind of place, you know, unless they're in very tough circumstances, like a war. But, you know, in general, we have much more potential to be friends than anything else. You know, so that's a wonderful quality we have. You know, so we can rejoice in that. So this week, I had COVID this week, so I was a perfectly miserable mess. So, and I was so disappointed that COVID's become so routine that nobody really cared that I had COVID. It's like, okay, oh well, big deal, call us in a few days. You know, I hadn't been, all this time I've been very fortunate in that I have not ever gotten sick from it. I've been positive for it, you know, and never had a single symptom until a week ago, you know. And then I went, oh, I think I'm sick. And then about an hour later, it was like, oh, I think I'm really sick. So it was quite a shock. But I'm completely well now. It is, fortunately, you know, I've been vaccinated to the max, so I can weather it pretty well. But it is good to be over it. But there is a summer bump, just saying, you know, so beware. And it's probably not a cold, it's probably COVID if you get sick. So, so I was reading the excerpt that I think Donna puts in the newsletter, you know, the weekly newsletter. So it's an what is that called? Excerpt from last week's teaching from Geshe-la. So this is my crutch. I very much need it. when I'm facing all you guys. Okay. Do. What was the center of that thing? Because somehow I managed to delete it from my copy. The very center, it says like, it starts from seeing, it starts with you. It starts from you. And what's in that center of that thing?
It starts from you seeing your ultimate nature as pure, something pure.
It starts from you seeing our ultimate nature as pure. So and he goes on to say, there are many, many ways that we can blame ourselves for every little thing that goes wrong. That's not the way to go higher. If you do that, you will sink deeper and deeper. Nothing is perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. There are many things to see and understand. This whole existence is not perfect. So as a Buddhist, every day you contemplate. I'm hoping we will have less stress if we understand that. If we understand that our nature is pure, that we all, according to Buddhism, have the potential to become a Buddha. That's pretty cool. So, and it comes from these qualities like friendliness, like compassion. This is how we know we have this potential, is that we have the basis for it. You know, that what distinguishes a Buddha from the rest of us, you know, which is a lot, but to simplify it, is that they have, you know, no bias. They have universal compassion and love, fully developed compassion and love for everybody, no matter what you do, no matter what your actions are. It's not that you don't have to, you know, don't have to guard our actions, but it's just that they start from that basis. Because what enlightened beings sees in us is our enlightened nature. That they know it's possible, even when we're in the worst possible state of mind, there's still that foundation for correcting that state of mind. You know, we have what we need, you know, to remove our negativities of mind. According to His Holiness in Buddhism, I'm sorry, every now and then I'll go, but it's because I'm extremely nervous, as you can see. Don't feel bad for me. I mean, you know, please. You know, I didn't bring that with me. Okay. I'm now without my crutch. Okay, that's all right, I can cope. Okay, so according to the scriptures, the fact that we have compassion, that every sentient being, you know, that has the ability to think and feel, has a sense of compassion for something, you know. It's like some people have a real affection for insects. I remember meeting a guy who had real affection for insects, not people so much, but insects he really liked. He found them interesting and fascinating and thought we should protect the world, you know, we need to protect our environment to protect these insects. You know, so we can, you know, and this faculty of being able to care about something other than ourselves is our foundation for Buddhism, to be a Buddha. You know, it's what gives us the clue that the negative emotions that we have, like greed and anger and impatience and jealousy and whatever. There are lots of them, Those also, we have the capacity for that. But those states of mind are faulty, according to Buddhism. They are considered disturbing states of mind because when they arise in the mind stream, our mind becomes unpeaceful. It becomes disturbed. So that's why we call it disturbing emotions. So the good news is that disturbing emotions arise out of a mistaken state of mind. So they're unreliable. They're wrong. And guess what? We can learn to correct that. We can recognize, this state of mind's unreliable. It's not correct. I must be exaggerating something bad. I must be exaggerating something good. That it's not an accurate state of mind. And we have a sophisticated enough mind and physical support for this mind, the human brain, to be able to change our minds. And one of the things that we need to do is recognize that our faculty for compassion and love is our avenue to more happiness and less suffering, whereas anger and greed they lead us to suffering. So what's one of the biggest obstacles in our own head to thinking about, becoming enlightened or becoming a Buddha or becoming, better? What's an obstacle to that? That's a question.
An obstacle to becoming enlightened, our own self-loathing, our own...
Yeah, that's it, right there.
Okay. Done.
So, that's actually what I typed on this thing that I don't have. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Are you the one who lost it? So His Holiness said when he first came to the West and discovered that we have a problem with self-esteem, he really didn't understand it. And of course, we look at him like, what's there not to understand? Are you kidding me? It's quite obvious, So what do we do with this? If we're supposed to develop love and compassion for every sentient being, what do we need to do first? Exactly. All the teachings on our practices for love and compassion say, and begin with yourself. We kind of forget that part, but we begin with ourselves. So we need to be aware when our anger is self-directed, when our impatience is self-directed, and recognize that's a mind we're trying to abandon. So just like we don't want to be all judgy and mean and petty towards others, we don't want to practice that mind on ourselves. So this is, to me, when I first studied Tibetan Buddhism, I kept thinking, I don't think we're starting in the same place as these Tibetan teachers were getting, somehow. And I think this is the reason, is they're starting from a place of Buddha nature. I have Buddha nature. I can become enlightened if I work hard enough, blah, blah, blah. That's their starting point. Our starting point is, well, I don't deserve that. So forget that, I just don't deserve it. So we kind of need to start our first step needs to be, really developing love and compassion within, so that we can really get out of the habit of having that voice in our heads telling us that we don't deserve things, that we're not good enough, that we're stupid, that we're da-da-da-da-da. I don't know what it is. And what's your, my conversation, it depends on the subject. So it can be pretty ugly, though. And we need to counter that. So one of the first steps in developing our universal compassion is equanimity. So what is equanimity? You can answer that, Susie.
Oh, thank you. Looking at every being as being equal.
Yes.
I had to wait. I'm thinking, what is she going to say? Yes.
So, and what is it that we do with people? We group them, don't we? And what do we group them in? Categories like strangers, all these different terms, that friends, enemies, strangers, good, bad, who cares? Those kind of categories, So we try to equalize that. We try to see that our labels, which may have some relevance in our immediate direct group of people, that we have, some people are friends and some people are strangers. Obviously, most of the world are strangers, full of strangers to us. And we have to try to break down those barriers, because even though someone might be a stranger to us, that doesn't mean they're not friends to other people, and that they're not, enemies to other people, and all those kind of things. That the labels are very narrow. They only have to do with you. It's who you see as my friends, my enemies, my group of, who cares? So just like we need to work on recognizing how narrow that view is, we need to recognize that we're putting ourselves, there's another group that's called me. And we need to equalize that me with all these other people. So when we talk about doing things for the benefit of all sentient beings, we need to remember we're one of them. So giving up self-centeredness does not mean discounting ourselves. It's not about that. Buddhism really doesn't talk about things like, oh, you have to deserve this. Like you have to deserve happiness. Or you deserve suffering. That's not a part of the jargon. Because by mere existence, His Holiness says, we have a right to be happy. We have a right to not suffer. We have a right to want those things, not suffering and happiness. We don't have to earn anything. And it's because it's logical if you think about it. All beings, those insects, that I'm not fond of, but, others are, they are trying to survive and be happy and get what they need. Happiness happiness is this vague term. His Holiness likes to say, what we're really looking for is, like satisfaction. So when we need food, food, when we get it, satisfies us, And we can see that on every level. Every animal that needs food, likes to find it, and will go to great lengths to find it, So we search for that. We do everything we can to make sure we've got our food and all those requisites, food, shelter, and whatever else, safety. What else do we need? Water. Water's good. So So there's nothing wrong with that. It makes perfect sense that we would want what we need to survive. Now, what the definition of what we need to survive is quite debatable, but that doesn't change the fact that it makes sense that we would seek these things that help our physical survival. What else do we need for survival? Companionship. Like one of the things that's come out since COVID, or since the lockdown, since apparently COVID's still hanging around, is loneliness. That we suffer, particularly in the West, of loneliness. How many people live alone? It's really interesting how when COVID happened, I didn't have to isolate, I already was, and how it just went on and on and on. But I kept thinking, there are people out there who have company. There are people out there who are in a house with others, So, and I know that wasn't a great thing for every day for others, that it also came with its own share of challenges, especially depending how many others were in your house, like all your kids and your partner and everybody else, maybe your grandparents. But we need companionship. We need others. On a very basic level, we need others for survival, don't we? Babies can't find food for themselves. Even small children can't survive by themselves. And guess what? Neither can us full-grown adults. Because even if we know how to drive, we have a car, we can go to the grocery, we have money so we can buy food, even if we have all those things, would any of that exist, the car, the money, the grocery store, the food, if it weren't for millions of other people? This notion of, I can take care of myself, I'm independent, is totally bogus. It's simply not true. We hold on to it, but it's simply not true. So that's one of those misnomers. That's not the right word. Some other word. That's one of those misconceptions. Thank you for the help. I usually need words. I also need help with pronouncing words, so. Okay, so misconceptions. So one of our misconceptions is independence, So based on that misperception, or not misperception, again, that's wrong. Misconception is this idea of independence. What can that lead to? The fact that it's incorrect, what can that lead to, this notion of independence? I didn't hear that. Depression? Arrogance? Is that what you said? Yep. Judgmental? Biased? Pride. Pride. Yeah, that's there.
It can lead to transformation if you analyze it closely and realize life doesn't work that way, and that interdependence is the reality.
There's one in every group. Let's skip ahead 3 chapters. Okay. You're absolutely right, Michael. We have to recognize that this misconception is leading us down other misconceptions, So things like pride can arise. And also, someone said depression, right? What is depression, and why would depression arise? When does this notion of independence? I don't need anybody else.
I think that through this idea of independence, that depression could arise because we let ourselves down. We start to build ourselves up to goals that we're supposed to do, and then if we don't completely live up to them, we then get depressed. We might think,
We think we failed.
right, we failed. We're failures, or we didn't make enough money, especially here in our society. We didn't make enough money, I don't have enough things, I'm not good enough, I'm not as good as the people I see on TV or stuff like that. I think that idea kind of brings a lot of depression for a lot of people.
And when we are helpless, like when you have COVID and you're not supposed to go anywhere, and you need food, and you have no friends. I'm kidding. I'm totally kidding. So, but we can feel very vulnerable, scared. We can feel, and that can eventually, over time, lead to being depressed. Oh, I can't take care of myself, It can lead to big fear. I think a lot of elderly people during COVID felt that way. It can be very scary. But all of us feel like this from time to time. When we realize we can't do something, like, I can't figure it out, like me in technology, it's like, are you kidding me? I used to be able to use my phone, they've updated it. And now I have no clue how to use my phone. And I get really, 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 really mad. Why? Why am I so mad? And why do I feel vulnerable? I want to do it myself. I don't want to have to call Alberto to find out how to do it. I don't want to have to, call David and find out how to do it. I don't want to call anybody to figure out how to do it because I can't know how to use my phone. So, it's a little problem there. So anyway, but the point is, it comes this thing like, oh, I shouldn't have to call anybody else. I should be able to figure this out, is coming from this misconception that I'm independent. And not only that, what's the second misconception that's operating there? It's important to be independent. It's valuable to be independent. It's better to be independent. It's better to not have to count on others. This creates division between us. We actually want to celebrate. If we want happiness, if we want to lower our suffering, there's an advantage to celebrating our need for others. It's not a disadvantage at all. All of our good qualities, generosity, compassion, love, patience, they arise due to interactions with others. We can't develop them without others. We can't be generous without others. No need to be patient without others. No one to care about without others. No need for compassion, love. So all the qualities that we hold dear in the people who, that we care about, that care for us, that we admire, from afar, All those good qualities arise from our interactions with each other. All our need for someone else gives someone else the opportunity to develop their good qualities. It's really a gift. So when we're hard on ourselves because we can't do something ourselves, we are denying ourselves this understanding that it literally is our interdependence that makes the world go round. And it can be in a good way, good, healthy way, or it can be, in a terrible way. And that terrible way comes from this feeling like it shouldn't be like this. I should be able to do this all by myself. I shouldn't need anybody else. So we really want to look at how we talk to ourselves. And we want to see the relationship between our misconceptions. The Buddha said all of our suffering comes from a basic misunderstanding how things exist. This is one of those things that we misunderstand. Is the thinking that independence is more important than dependence, when in fact, independence doesn't exist. So good luck. If you think you need independence to be happy, you're never going to succeed. So, are there other relationships like that where we misunderstand something? So one of the biggest for me is this idea of deserving. I don't deserve people's respect. What do we do with ourselves when we think we're not worthy? Yep.
So I was just thinking about how I work with people. I'm a psychotherapist, and I found that a certain percentage of my clients isolate because the voices are louder. The self-loathing voices. I'm just all about self-loathing today. The self-loathing voices are louder when they're with people, and so they tend to want to just be holed up and away from people, where their self-loathing voice goes down. But of course, that doesn't really help. They become lonely, depressed,
That's a vicious little cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is an issue. So this is why we need to learn how to self-talk in a more realistic way. When we demand too much out of ourselves, when we think that only perfection is going to be good enough, when we think that, I don't know what we think. I mean, I think some pretty stupid things sometimes, and it actually, when we look, it doesn't make any sense at all. So we need to start looking. We need to listen and kind of go, is that true? So these things that we're trying to learn with others, like when someone yells at us, and we kind of get startled, and we kind of go, okay, well, is that true? We need to ask ourselves those same questions when we're talking to ourselves.
It's funny, I'm sitting here and I'm thinking I'm the exact opposite of all those things. But what I'm happy about is earlier when I was coming in, I was listening to the story of the Buddha and how he went from being really aesthetic, and he spoke about balance. So my problem was that I have an overblown ego, which I developed because I grew up in a very hard neighborhood, and I decided that, it was dangerous, physically dangerous where I grew up. And I decided, okay, if no one else likes me, I'm gonna like me enough for everyone else. And I think like the Buddha, I went over too far in one direction. And what I found is that I became very impatient with people that I called, quote unquote, weak.
Right.
But they were more human than I were. And so the balance, again, the central lesson that I believe in is the balance. For those of us that are over on one spectrum.
On either direction.
Right, that's not real.
Yeah.
And that's, every time I do that, I've taught myself to not be judgmental about what other people think, because I was very, if you
You're
weren't
not alone.
Right, if you were not up to my standards, you were thinking slower, I'm like, okay, I don't have time for stupid people.
Yeah.
But I've made time, and they're not stupid, they just think differently.
What a shock. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yes, Susie.
When I see myself saying something negative about myself, I often say, oh, that's so human of you. And I try to do that at home all the time. You're such a human.
And someday you might be able to say that with affection. Yes, Orlando. Is that your name?
Orlando, yes.
Yes, okay, good. I'm not having
Yeah, thank you. That's my name. Yeah, I used to suffer from depression when I was very young, and I never could explain that after listening to the teachings. Now I think that it's a complicated mixture of attachment and anger. Maybe attachment to a form of myself that is not real and doesn't align with my capacities or any qualities that I have, and also a form of anger, because I also feel aversion towards certain aspects of my personality or the things that make myself. But I think that it might be different from every single person, because everybody's attached and has anger against different aspects of their personality. So it's really, I think, a very complicated problem to overcome.
It appears complicated, I agree. It does appear complicated because we really are so layered and nuanced, and we have all these different things. And the Buddha would say, not only, I don't know what the Buddha would say, who am I kidding? But Buddhism seems to imply that I've really caught myself in a hole here. Okay, so we've had, since beginning this time, to create these nuances and layers. Like we're not born blank slates. We've got a whole lot of stuff going on from the beginning, of this life. So, it appears very complicated. This is our habit of elaboration. We elaborate a lot. And one of the things, and you might want to look it up, there's an article by His Holiness called, what's it called? Compassion in the Individual, Compassion in the World. And if you just look up that title, you'll be brought to His Holiness' website. And there are 4 articles, I think, up there that are just lovely. And what's really lovely about it is how simple the logic in it is. Like the simplicity of the logic of course we should try to be happy. Of course we should try to grow, that we should try to avoid suffering, that this just makes sense. And I think that understanding, one thing that's come up, I've said it, you said it, I don't know your name, sir, that just spoke about the other side of the balance. Okay, yes, Dennis, okay. So at Orlando said, is one problem with all of these things is they're not realistic. They're not based on reality. When we have low self-esteem, we're exaggerating our negative qualities. When we have high self-esteem, we're exaggerating our positive qualities. High self-esteem meaning arrogance. And so we need to come back to what's real, and we need to develop a realistic sense of ourselves. Because you're right, that exaggerated expectations of ourselves causes us no end of problems. And it not just causes problems for ourselves, but it's the way it also affects our interactions with others. We do it to everybody else too. You know, this is why we're so judgy in our minds. Now, that judginess might be everybody else is wonderful and I'm a jerk. You know, everybody else deserves happiness, but not me. Well, you know, that doesn't make any sense. And we need to look at that. So we have to use different techniques to be able to equalize ourselves with others.
I think for me it was difficult.
The people at home can't hear you if you know.
For me, it was very difficult to understand the idea that thinking poorly of myself was actually the same thing as thinking very highly of myself. But I think it was Lama Yeshe's Becoming Your Own Therapist, where he said that if you are thinking that lowly of yourself, you're still exceptionalizing yourself.
Right.
It may be in the negative, but in so doing, it's no different than thinking that you are better than everyone else.
It's another form of
It's a
afflicted
different
pride.
sense of pride.
And it's hard, I mean, that was my first question to Venerable Rabina, was about self-esteem. She goes, oh, that's just pride, dear. That was really kind of distressing.
We were talking about the independence thing and compassion. And, I've worked in human service for decades, and even though I deal with a lot of challenges, what makes me feel good is helping people.
Right.
So.
And this is the point, the final point of this all. So did you want to add to that?
I worked when I first got out of college, I worked in corporate offices, and that just made me miserable.
Yeah.
But now that I
Help others.
help other people,
Yeah.
I feel so much better. But
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, that's what, the road to happiness is cherishing others. If you hate yourself, that's almost impossible to do. So that's the thing here. This is what we need to recognize, that, and most of us don't hate ourselves 24 hours a day, thank goodness. And thank goodness that we have therapists and help for people who do, you know, because that takes a lot of intensive help and effort on the part of the person to overcome that, you know. But so there are techniques, you know, so this equalizing self and others is one way to help us have a more realistic view of ourselves, you know. And we may have to use like an imaginary friend in our head to figure it out. You know, we may have to, you know, watch how we talk to ourselves and then say, what would I say to a good friend who's saying that? Would I think it's true? Could I think it's even possibly true? Because usually when we have negative self-talk going, we are really exaggerating the negative qualities. It's just like the same way when we criticize someone else. And when we step back a little bit, we might see that maybe we're going a little far in our judgment, you know. But we do this to ourselves, and it is a habit. And so to break the habit, we have to interrupt this conversation that we're having with ourselves. And if you want to be able to go on to cherish others, you don't need to be so caught up in self-loathing. It's going to interfere, you know? So these are ways in which, you know, we can add to our practice of cultivating love and compassion for others by developing love and compassion for ourselves, because it will strengthen our ability to do the other. So if you need an unselfish reason to do it, Do it because you will be better help to others. If you don't need an unselfish reason to do it because you deserve happiness too. You know, we need to understand that all you have to do to deserve happiness is exist. It's not more complicated than that. No. We don't have to explain it more than that. We don't have to create some elaborate story on top of that. Everything's better when we take care of ourselves and take care of others. So we need to take care of ourselves as part of the equation. You know. But you really do have to look at what you say to yourself. You know. So maybe all of y'all are in the helping professions and don't have this problem with talking negatively about yourself to yourself or being a harsh critic or being whatever. You know, we need to start seeing that we are trying, those are exactly the habits we're trying to give up when we're dealing with others, right? Trying to learn, not to be so judgmental, not to assume we know what's in the mind of others, not to assume we know what's going on in their lives, not to assume, blah, 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 blah. All this elaboration. Well, we need to, also be more gentle with ourselves and recognize that we have a lot going on in those complicated histories, complicated nuances, that affect us. But it's not necessary to beat ourselves up. Giving up self-centeredness does not mean we should self-harm. And the way to learn how to be cherishing of others, we have to know how to do that within. We have to be forgiving to ourselves for not being perfect. And we have to understand we don't even need forgiveness for that. We've done nothing wrong by not being perfect. So asking ourselves, when we talk to ourselves, is it true? When we say, oh, man, I can't believe how stupid that was. Is it true? I'm a mean, terrible person. Is it true? What does it mean to say you're a mean, terrible person? What does that imply? Yep, all the way in the back.
For myself, I think when someone says, I'm a mean, terrible person, they actually realize that there is something wrong with their behavior.
Is that what you think about you? I don't need you to tell me what other people think. So,
well, when I used to think I was a mean, terrible person, I only now realize that that is the time when I was getting ready to stop being what I considered to be a mean, terrible person.
well, that's a wonderful way to respond, because that is one of the ways we can respond. Because what does that mean to the first question? When that's your thought, when you ask, is it true? What's your answer? Yeah, more.
So for me, when I look at that, I look at, I direct myself as being a mean, terrible person only because I grasp at the qualities of what I identify as a mean, terrible person, right? So
And you
I-
become that.
Right, I become that, because, and I grasp that, whatever that quality is, only because that's what's going by, that's what's familiar, and so then I latch on to it.
Yeah.
And then it starts the storyline.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I am that. And then we have a whole nother suitcase of guilt. But what else are we saying there? So what if we say, yeah, sometimes it's true. Sometimes I'm a mean, terrible person. What do we need to do with that? Forgiveness. What does forgiveness do? What does self-forgiveness imply?
It's okay to slip up. Like,
Okay,
you
so
gotta-
what does that imply? I'm trying to get, it's not, I'm not being fair, I'm trying to get, we can change it. It also means we're not it all the time. You know? That this idea that we're a mean, terrible person is an exaggeration. It's like Mark was saying, then if we hold it, we keep telling ourselves, I'm a mean, terrible person. We hold that as this image of ourselves, right? As a mean, terrible person. And then we don't notice any of the good stuff we do, and then we have to, go out in the garden and eat worms. But it's just, we really need to understand that these are exaggerations. We are making elaborations that are false, and we can correct them, but it takes effort. It needs to be, go ahead, Susan.
Oh, sometimes when I think that way, I try to catch it, I'm human, and I say, oh, that one got by.
Yep.
Trying to be mindful.
Yep. So kindness and gentleness and all that helps. And it also helps sometimes to go, to be firm. It's not true. Sometimes I'm a mean, terrible person. And this event that just happened is an example of that. So what can you do? Oh, maybe I could apologize. Own it. Oh, I'm sorry. I've just been a mean, terrible person. I mean, you can say that to people. I'm sorry. That was mean. It had nothing to do with you. It's my mood, blah, 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 So we do want to examine, the imperfections, and not think they are us either. Yeah, Lemon.
I think it's not skillful to think at any time that you're a mean, terrible person.
Right.
I mean, it's, not even for 1 second. I think actually it might be better, in my sense, to think that was a mean, terrible action.
Yeah.
But I have Buddha nature. Basically, I am perfect in everywhere. If, I have the seeds for that.
Right.
I am not that. So I'm never, ever a mean, terrible person, not even for a nanosecond.
And you never thought that, have you?
Oh, all the time. But I mean, what I'm
you're
saying
right.
is that it's not correct to think that.
It is not correct, exactly like Lamo's saying. Lamo is sharing an example of exactly how we can talk to ourselves to change it, so that we can drop this habit of thinking we are that. We can remind ourselves, it depends on who you are. You may, not have any Buddhist leanings, and this idea of Buddha nature seems ridiculous, But if you are, remind yourself, that's what the Buddha said. Guess what? You have Buddha potential, So that's a good start. Also, it's like, it really isn't true that anyone is that way all of the time and every moment. So it is valid to recognize it's a lie that you're telling yourself. You know? And because we want to change those habits, because they get in our way. You know, and they don't just get in our way towards our own self-worth, but it also influences the way we think of others. You know? So being able to correct these habits, not just when we think about them with others, but also when we think about them for ourselves, helps us break down the habit, not just the selective habit. You know, like I can say anything I want to in my mind or out loud about my enemies, because, you know, who cares? But, you know, that's not correct. You know, you're reinforcing a habit that you're trying to give up. And you're trying to give it up because anger and impatience and, you know, self-disgust and other disgust are unpleasant states of mind. It's not nice to feel that way. It feels crappy, you know? So what we can do to uplift ourselves is to start recognizing when we have a completely unrealistic view of ourselves and correct it, you know, and it takes time, you know, and it takes, you know, you come up with little ways to do it. Like Susie said, oh, there's my, how human of me. Developing affectionate concern is part of how we cultivate our compassion and love, our universal compassion and love. And we need to understand that we can have affectionate concern for ourselves, that we can laugh at ourselves, that we can go, oh, there I go again. I know you. That's a habit you've had for a very long time, you know. But it doesn't mean we think it's a friend. These habits harm us. You know, so we want to counter them. We want to say, you know, okay, I've had enough of you. You know, and we're all just, this is just an that's not it, inner process of our mind. You know, so sometimes we really have to be firm with ourselves because it's, you know, if we're depressed, we need to work hard at being able to go, oh, that's just not true. You won't believe it. And that, you know, but you say it enough, you will believe it, just like you believe the other version. You know, what is it? You repeat a lie often enough, it becomes the truth? Yeah. Well, think what we've done to ourselves with the stories we tell ourselves. You know, and the thing that what's interesting is we tend to flip-flop, like a roller coaster, which isn't a flip-flop, hopefully. But we go from really thinking poorly of ourselves, and then something nice happens, like either someone compliments us or something, and then we just grab onto that. Oh, I'm not so bad. Oh, da-da-da-da-da. And then we fall to the other extreme. And then we go back to feeling terrible. And then occasionally we feel really good. And then we got, and that's no way to live, you know. So it's a matter of noticing and then having a chat. Going, oh, maybe this isn't a healthy way to think. Oh, and have a conversation. Oh, that's not true. I have Buddha nature. Well, I also have loving actions, compassionate actions, kind actions, patient actions. Boy, you see, this is it's so rare that I have a patient action. It's like, oh, yeah, maybe. So, working on that. So, anyway, okay. How much time do you need for announcements today? Anybody have announcements today? Yeah, I thought that's why you came in the room. I thought Robbie must have an announcement. Okay. Yeah, go ahead and do it.
Thank you, Venerable Tendron. Let's see. Okay. An exciting announcement that the Board of Directors has approved our center renovations, which is a following up on a wish by Geshe Gelik to make the center more accommodating for large groups, for our Tibetan community, for our community programs. This is the first major investment that we've made in our facility in the 20 years that we've been here. The good news is that we own this building, lock, stock, and barrel. We have no mortgage on the building or the property, so we're in good shape financially, and we feel that this is an appropriate time to bring things up to snuff that weren't done as nicely as we would have wished originally, but it'll be improving the kitchen area, the storage areas, the electrical outlets, the water supplies. So it's an excellent investment in our facility here that we need to maintain. I just want to let people know that the last thing we did was we put solar panels on the roof, and we're currently generating all our electricity. Okay, and we can thank David Strevel and his team for that.
Yes.
We're not draining anything during this, even during this summer. We're generating above and beyond the power that we need to keep the center open. So next step is to improve the facility a little bit for all the people who come here. The total cost will be approximately $155,000, which sounds like a lot, but if you think that we've been here for 20 years, it's really quite reasonable. We're taking approximately $50,000 from our accumulated, from our reserve funds. We have some donors behind the scenes who have already pledged in the range of $35,000. So it's quite reasonable, but I would like everybody to consider making a donation to this project because it really is what makes the center a useful facility for as many people as possible. And we anticipate that the project will be moving forward over the next several weeks to months to keep the price down. There's going to be a lot of donated labor from Kadampa Center members, which includes taking the old cabinets out of the kitchen, and we'll be doing the painting ourselves. So we're really trying to keep it economically as reasonable as possible. So I just wanted to let people know about that. If you have any questions, you can speak to me, to David Strevel in the back. But it's a quite exciting time. And, you know, if all things go well, we'll have this completed by the time Geshe Gelik returns to the center.
That'd be great.
And this project started because of his wishes. So that was really the impetus. So that would be quite exciting. Do you have anything to add, David? Yeah. David Strevel is the project manager for this. So I'll turn the mic over to him.
Thank you, Robbie. Yes, we're having our first little volunteer opportunity. Some of you have gotten an email. We're going to have to meet and look at all the stuff and now in the kitchen and the office and the nursery today and figure out where to move it, which means the painful decisions about what should be junked, what's got to be stored, where can it be stored, and so on. So we're going to start disrupting the center a little here. Over the next 2 weeks, we're going to try to move everything out of what's now the kitchen and the office and most of the stuff in the nursery. And then that'll be so the contractor can start work, we think, in about 3 weeks. And all this has happened there's been rapid progress in the last week. The city finally approved our building permit, so the contractor can actually start work. And Robbie and I are acting as the fundraisers, calling upon people. We're calling on who we think might be major donors right now, but then there'll be a place for everyone to make a donation, and that's what we're doing.
Thank you. How cool is that?
Well, it should be wonderful. You know, we have such a hard time having potlucks or things here, and recently had to put off the idea of having a retreat because folks wanted to have many people here having lunch and dinner every day, and it just is not practical to bring all that in. So we're going to have a kitchen. We've never had a stove or an oven in this building. We have no hot water. We don't have so many of the things that kitchens normally have. We are going to install all of that. We'll have a regular kitchen with a stove top and an oven, and a microwave, and
So all of those of you that cook, please.
yes. So we do have enthusiastic volunteer cooks, so they'll be at work. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, yes, well, lots of chances to party. I wanted, you may have seen the gratitude in our weekly announcements that we have collected 274 pair of eyeglasses for those in need, but we've since added a few more, so we've had almost 300 pair of eyeglasses that you guys have donated for a very worthy cause. The Satya Sai community will be having a free healthcare day in September, and they will be distributing some of these eyeglasses at that time. Whatever doesn't get used at that event will be used because every month they bring in eye care to rural communities. So whatever doesn't get used at the healthcare day will be used at other times. So thank you for your generosity. Rejoice in your merit. You've really made a difference for at least 300 people. The other announcement is next Saturday night is movie night. So I really invite you all to come and join us to see a movie called A Monk with a Camera. It's a biography of Nikki Vreeland, who's the grandson of Diana Vreeland, the editor of Vogue. So he's had a very interesting life, but when you come and we watch it together, it's a wonderful community event, free popcorn and drinks, and you get to hear the rest of the story. So be sure to tune in next Saturday night. It's on Saturday now instead of on Friday. Thank you.
What time does it start?
Oh, that helps.
Yeah.
We gather at 6:30. The movie starts promptly at 7. Thank you.
Thanks, Elise.
Yeah, August 10th, yes.
Another announcement. We are a very chatty crowd.
Next week is the children's
Right.
program. We sit outside before the teachings, get waivers signed, whatever. We stay for the morning prayers, and then we do a circumambulation around the building and end up in the children's classroom in the back. So we have wonderful programs set out. What else? It's wonderful. Usually the second Sunday of the month, just double check on the calendar. But yeah, we'll be here next week.
And if you don't have kids that need this at this time, if you have friends who do, recommend it. It's been, we've had a great family program for years, but everybody aged out, so now it's time to start fresh. So so I know sometimes parents don't come here because they need something to do with their children. So please encourage them to come and give it a try. So, this is an example of how, that our dependence creates opportunities for our good qualities like generosity. Yay, we need your money. But, but we need it so that we can improve our ability to give ourselves more community stuff, more activities and more companionship, more, all that kind of stuff. So it's really worthwhile. This has been my spiritual home since '97. So, it's, I know how valuable it is. And part of what makes it that way is community, is showing up to things, So anyway, I encourage that. But now what? Okay, do I have something I want to say before we do our prayers? Do I have anything else to say? So, one of the keys to being able to change our habits is to notice what they are. So, just notice this week, if you're not having kind conversations with yourself, or having unrealistic expectations of yourself, and see if you can't at least notice that and then kind of go, gee, is it really true? Or am I exaggerating something here? So, all right. I'm sorry, I've just listened. I'm eavesdropping. Sorry about that. It's like, wait, what's she saying? Okay, so let's rejoice. This is something we don't do enough, is rejoice. And, you set an intention to show up here. Maybe you didn't think you'd participate and you did participate, or you listened or whatever. So be happy about that. This is how community is created, and this is how we help each other. We are not independent, we are interdependent. So thank you for that. And take it away, Miss Chantmaster.
Okay, please turn to page 246, and we'll read the dedication verses from Master Shantideva. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of our merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with the mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may these never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. Then page 244 for the long life prayer for His Holiness. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you're the source of all happiness and good, all-powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara. And then the opposite page, the long life prayer for Khyentse Rinpoche. The one who mastered his speech at a very young age, the one with great patience received the name Avatare, the one with great precision to spread the teachings of Lama Tsongkhapa and Bliss and Void, Lama ornament of the yellow hat tradition, please remain until samsara ends. And then the inside back cover for Rinpoche. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Lozang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of the infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing the here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged, incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory to the disciples. Okay, and then the inside front cover, the long life prayer for Geshe-la. Supreme God, you lead us on the many paths of virtue. A shining sun, you give us the best of excellent explanations. Supreme virtuous friend, you are a constant Dharma companion. Lama, who is renounced fame, may you ever remain. And for Geshe Sampo, you have steadfast imprints of virtuous qualities, and keep the instructions of the glorious Guru in your heart. You pass day and night with noble activities. Great virtuous friend, may you have a very long life. And 7 Dharma mantras for all sentient beings. Om Tare Tu Re Soha. 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 Om Tare Tu Re Soha.
So I want to thank those at home. Like I said, I can't quite see you this far away, but thanks for being there. Hi, Rainey, I can see you. So thank you very much. Have a good week. And if you want to support us, but you'd like to get something in return for that, buy a book. So there are lots of books out there for sale, but they're also by donation. So whatever you can offer. So thank you. Have a great week.
Thanks to everybody online. We'll see you next week. Have a great week.